Good morning, Oxford. My name is Nyasha Mudukuti, and I'm from Zimbabwe. So I'll tell you my personal story from Zimbabwe to Michigan State University. So I'd like to share with you my picture over there. That's a picture of me back home. So behind me is actually the village where I come from, my grandfather's compound. So it's actually on a hill. So I would go there whenever I felt like I wanted to escape from the troubles of life, whenever I wanted to escape from everything that was happening in my life, because things were not easy. So I would go there and I would stretch out my hands out wide and I would dream of a better world out of poverty. So that place for me was everything. So today I'll share with you where I come from. So from that little port country, so we call it the cattle pot. What do you call it? The teapot country, the green teapot country, so the way Zimbabwe is shaped. So on that red patch is where I come from. It's a very, very hot region. It's called Chiredzi. And we farm mainly sorghum and maize, but not really much. So maize, sorghum, rapoko, all those drought-resistant crops. So when people talk about Zimbabwe, they have a view of the vast land pieces of agriculture, mostly for the commercial farmers. But my story is not more of a commercial farmer. My story is a story of a smallholder farmer, where we had to grow up, just like the picture of that woman on the right. And then there's another side of farming in Zimbabwe, those commercial farmers with over-drought, irrigation systems, and the big hectares. But we didn't have a big hectare. We didn't. So my story resembles a woman in the village who had to use the minimum inputs to produce and feed their families. And that's the story that I will share with you tonight. And that's why I have to share with you my story, because if I don't change my story, these children's stories will not change. So what's my story? So I grew up in a city, basically. My father was a policeman. We pretty much had a decent life. But things changed when my father passed away. We moved to the rural areas of my grandfather's compound, and that's when life was not easy for me. Because during that time, we had to wake up and go to the fields very early in the morning before going to school, and then go to school afterwards. So we would go and hand-hoe, like manual weeding the fields, and that was not easy. That wasn't fun at all. I never enjoyed it a single bit. I think I grew up saying I wanted nothing to do with agriculture. I wanted to get an education, escape this poverty life, get a job in the city, be a secretary, be a doctor, put red lipstick, have big nails, and sit on a desk. That's what I wanted to do. Because it wasn't easy. So behind me on that picture is a sorghum harvest that was just done. And that, what do you think I'm holding in my hands? Mice, yes. That's a delicacy in my village. We eat that. So from Chikombedzi, that's the village name where I grew up. That'll show you me. So when we harvest the sorghum, we have to thresh it, right? And you know how itchy it is manually threshing the sorghum with the husk going all over your skin? We didn't have much protective material to cover ourselves, so we had to do it like that. And I was no way I'm going to end up in the agricultural sector. So I was determined to go to school. But life had a way of turning out events. So I was very intelligent in school, very super intelligent. But by the time I finished my A-levels and ready to go to university, my mother could not afford me to go to university. So when I looked at it, I saw no reason for me to go into farming. Why would I want to go into farming when, one, I feel my mother is failing to feed the family, two, she's failing to send me to school. Why would I want to be in farming? I have to be a doctor. I have to be a doctor. So life turned out in another way again. I got a scholarship, and I got admitted into university. So I studied biotechnology, because originally I'd set up my mind I wanted to be a doctor. But I couldn't get admitted into medicine because I didn't have enough points for me to be a medical doctor. But coming to think of it, if I wasn't spending too much time weeding in the morning, probably I would have had the points for me to be admitted into a doctor. So I say, you know what? I should have been a doctor. I should have been a doctor. But anyway, I still love what I do today. So I went into biotechnology, and I studied biotechnology in the University of Technology. During that time, that's when we learned more about genetic modification and all these things that were happening. And there were a lot of misconceptions during that time. So I went on and I did my attachment at what is called the agribiotech. So I met one of the most inspirational person in my life, Dr. Ian Robertson. He's the very reason why I'm here today to talk about biotechnology and be passionate about it. So when I went there, what they were simply doing at that facility was just tissue culture of sweet potatoes, just tissue culture. But he would speak about it with passion to the extent that he inspired me to say, wow, this means that if we use this simple technology, we can increase productivity for the farmers. This means that somehow if we increase this science, children in my village wouldn't be going to weed early in the morning the way they did, the way I did. So I wanted to use that platform of learning about technology so that I can inform my village, I can inform my mothers back home who didn't understand what it is. So in 2013, I did my attachment at Agribiotech. And then we had the very best opportunity of having Mark Linus visit us in Zimbabwe. And he spoke about his activism in the scientific field, and then how he was once against it and once he got conformed and had a different view of it. So I took that and I said, what if we could use this to improve the lives of smallholder farmers? Because they cannot be excluded out of this technology. So I would go back home and ask my mother if she would one day eat a GM corn. You know what they scream? No ways. No ways are they going to eat that. But the funniest thing about Zimbabwe is just across the border, we have South Africa, right? South Africa has GMO crops. But then we say no, but we are the very people going back across the border to buy stuff from South Africa and then come and sell in our shops. So what if we could just accept this and use this and make sure that our farmers can benefit, the GDP of our country can increase? So why are we going at the expense of all this and saying no to this technology and then helping South Africa increase and be more economically powerful than us? So for me, that's when I had questions of how I can use the knowledge that I have to improve the lives of smallholder farmers and to inform the policy makers, because some of these things about science, we have people who are in power but they have no access to what this means, what this technology is. So they have to be informed. So the bridge for me was information access and wanting to know more about this technology. It's easier for me to go back home and tell my mother about GMO crops or about CRISPR-Cas and all these gene editing technologies that are out there, unlike a foreigner coming in. They believe my story more because there is no way I'm going to say, you know what, let's do this and all of you are going to die. So from there, in 2013, I had the journey to be picked to be at the World Food Prize through the Global Farmers Network, and I went there and I shared my story as well. So I was there and I saw amazing things. So we visited farms in Iowa and their farmers in Iowa and their farms, and they were very big, highly mechanized. You didn't see any weed in the farms, and I was wondering to myself, what is happening? Is this magic? You know, the way their farms were so much efficient from the production system, and everything was so organized, and for them to tell me that this was a family farm, I said, you were joking. This looks like a cooperative farming back home. So I was like, where are we missing it? Why is it we cannot catch up to this? Why are we still far behind? And I can give you all the statistics of why Africa is still far behind in terms of agriculture, and they say we're 20 years behind catching up with you guys. But that can be shortened. So I was wondering, how do you picture the 10 hectares that we have and make it more efficient the way the Iowa farms are? And that really blew my mind. So during that conference, and I made sure that I wanted to study abroad and gain more knowledge about this genetics field and agricultural science in terms of improving crop productivity for smallholder farmers, specifically for smallholder farmers, because I feel like they're left out in all of these things. So I finished my degree and I moved on to Michigan. So besides that, this is a picture of me in Germany when I was awarded the Alco Africa Ambassador. So during this time, I got the time to travel around Africa and talk about agriculture for young people to be involved in agriculture, and then talk about policymakers and how they can improve the policies and have enabling policies for farmers to choose what they want to do with their farms, and like just saying no to this, but give farmers a platform so that they can choose what they want to do on their farms and want to grow on their farms. So after this experience, I moved on to Michigan. Lord help me. This was the hardest of my time in Michigan. So I came in at Michigan State University with little or zero research skills. I went into Robin Buell's lab and I was intimidated. There were days when I cried myself to sleep and like, I think I should go back home. but I cannot call my mother back home and tell her I'm coming. I'm the firstborn in my family, and everyone looks up to me. And for me to come to America, the whole village celebrates. No one has been to America in my village. So I cannot call on my phone and say, Mom, things are getting tough. I don't even understand how to do RNA extraction, DNA extraction, how to operate a gel. I didn't know. I had undergraduate students come and teach me, but yet I was a master's student. How embarrassing. How embarrassing. I was top in my class back home, but I came to Michigan State University. I questioned whether I was learning or not, whether I knew anything or not, whether I was going to survive in this plant breeding or not, whether I wanted to drop and pick up a music degree or not. I had nights when I looked at my advisor and she would say, Nyasha, you are trying. She's a strong woman. I think if I was in a position, I wouldn't hire myself. I wouldn't hire myself, to be honest, because I came in and she had to take me from the basic of lab work and group me up with all the mistakes that I made in the lab, how intimate. I would walk in on a tissue culture, and this would be frightening for me. Let alone operating maybe a centrifuge or what, I would think, what if I blow up this whole lab? What's going to happen? But it was an experience of learning and making many mistakes in that laboratory, and I really want to thank Robin because she was patient with me in my learning experience. So there I was, that's me in our lab, just viewing some tissue culture. This is sweet potatoes, actually, so I was just viewing that in the laboratory. So the experience at Michigan State University has been phenomenal, eye-opening in terms of the high-tech technologies that you guys have, which are not at our disposal. Because what I had during my undergraduate, if we go back to the picture that I showed you during my undergrad, this one, some would think that's copper sulfate ions or anything of that sort. That was a dishwashing liquid. You know, that's how science was. It was more of theory and less of practical experience. But science, in order for you to be a great scientist, you have to go and make mistakes in the laboratory. So that's me in the laboratory. So let's talk about where we see the future. So when people ask me about the future of agriculture, I say the future is young. The future is really, really young. The future is really promising. But how do we get it to be so much promising? So I'll give you a few examples of young people who are doing really great things out there in terms of African agriculture. So on the top, there is Joseph Macharia. He's the founder of Mkulima Young. Mkulima Young is an app-based application for smallholder farmers in Kenya. So it forms a system for them to be organized in terms of their markets and for their produce. So it's a very good application for young people to be involved in that. That's really inspiring. And then on the far left, is it right or left? Right. That's Ramiso Mashumba from Zimbabwe. She has vast land of peas, and she does export peas to Europe. She's really amazing. And then on the bottom, that's Eric Kadura. He's a passion fruit farmer from Uganda. I met him in Berlin, and he talked about passion fruit and how he was using passion fruit to improve the community and employ young women and empower them in terms of agriculture. So on the bottom left, on the left side, that's me again. Well, my story is not yet over. So I'm going to be finishing my degree this year. I wanted to say next year, thinking we're still in 2018. So I'm finishing my degree in June or May. That's the latest that I'll finish. So where do I want to see myself? I think I want to work with policymakers and bridge the gap between the agricultural sector and the policymakers on how they are making informed decisions for the farmers. So besides that, ladies and gentlemen, I've given you my CV. Please employ me.